Hi, everybody. I'm Reed Farrel Coleman, and by the way, I'm reading this, so you can just so
You got the first part right.
I'm not going to hold it down here and pretend. Hi, I'm Reed Farrell Coleman, standing in for the spectacular Pam Stack. For those of you who don't know me, I've published 32 novels, including 6 in the Jesse Stone series for the estate of the late Robert B. Parker. I've been a 6 times New York Times bestselling author. I've won or been nominated for most American Mystery Awards, but I am especially proud to be a 4-time recipient of the Seamus Award for Best Private Eye Novel of the Year. As you've heard or will hear, my guest Matt Coyle is a fellow recipient of that award. And though I now write lots of stuff, my first love is the PI novel. Now I'm going to read Matt's introduction. Um, Matt Coyle is the author of the best-selling Rick Cahill crime series. He knew he wanted to be a write mysteries at 14 when his father gave him The Simple Art of Murder by some unknown guy named Raymond Chandler. His books have won the Anthony Seamus Lefty Authors on the Air Book of the Year Award, the Ben Franklin Silver, Forward Reviews Books, Forward Reviews Book of the Year Silver, and the San Diego Book Awards, as well as being nominated for many others, including the Barry Award. Matt lives in San Diego, where he is writing his next crime novel. He was named the Mystery Writer of the Year for 2021 by the San Diego Writers Festival. Doom Legacy is the 9th book in the Rick Cahill series. Hey, Matt, how you doing, man?
Yeah, great for doing that. Thanks for doing this, Reed. Appreciate it.
Oh, I'm happy to do this. I'm always happy to talk to other mystery authors. So let's do this quick. Give us a quick, a bullet point about Cahill and a bit about the series and a bit about this book. And then we're going to talk about what's really interesting to other writers is process and stuff about writing PI. So the stage is yours, my friend.
Great. So Rick Cahill is a former cop at Santa Barbara Police Department. I think about 18 years ago, he was arrested for his wife's murder. Never tried, released, but never exonerated, and thought by many to be a guy who got away with murder for many years until it was addressed in my 6th book, I think, Lost Tomorrows. He's gone back to his hometown of San Diego, where the only job he could get was in a restaurant initially. And now he's back to what he thinks helping people as a private investigator. And he did not murder his wife, but he feels responsible for her death for some of the actions he took the night she died. And so he has a tendency to try to redeem himself with every case that he takes, or at least the ones I write about. And that can lead to bad decisions and maybe some bad outcomes for some of the people he's trying to help. In Doom Legacy, Rick's gone through a lot in his in his life. In Doom Legacy, he's actually married with a child he thought he'd never have after the death of his first wife. Kind of a miracle child to him, but he's got chronic traumatic encephalopathy, or he's been pre-diagnosed with it, the pro football disease. Everybody's probably heard about it since the Will Smith movie many years ago, and he's got the happy marriage and the daughter, he had a child he thought he'd never have, but he's got this horrible disease. In addition, there's a symptom that has come up where he gets these irrational sudden rages when he gets angry, and he's which is a symptom, a real life symptom of the disease, and he's trying to hide them from his wife for various reasons, and it's caused a huge rift in the
Now,
relationship.
let me stop you right there.
Sure, I was going to stop anyway.
One of the things, what readers find interesting in books sometimes is, of course, what the writer meant for them to find interesting, and sometimes it's things that are hit personally the reader. Though, of course, as a writer, you never know you're doing that. So let me tell you something that I have a friend who's an ex-professional football player, who's a golfing buddy of mine, who is who, although he hasn't been diagnosed, he knows he's got CTE,
Yeah.
and it really hit home for me because, like Cahill, he has those rages when he can't control himself.
Wow.
Has sudden emotions that he doesn't know where they come from. And he's had, as he says, at least 7 concussions that
Yeah.
he knows about. So when I'm reading this, you didn't have to convince me
Hmm.
much. Um,
Well,
yeah, it
that's
was
sad.
really well done, and it's real true
Thanks.
to life. So let me
Well,
compliment you on that.
thanks. And it's sad and ironic that you said that. I just did an event. I did a Barnes and Noble in San Diego where basically sit at a table and people walk by, but I always stand at a table. But anyway, it's one of those sit and I call it stand and deliver as opposed to a formal talk. But a friend of mine who lived near in the area who was going to come to my launch and he's a great friend, a golfing buddy. I've known him for 50 years probably. He came up to me in a quiet moment when I'm standing there, and he told me that he was a former cop, CHP rather, and he was pre-diagnosed with CTE. I had no idea. This was learned it 10 days ago. Um, he's had concussions. I remember in football in a game when he had a concussion, as a matter of fact, way back in high school, and I've had a couple myself. But so it does hit home, and ironically, also a friend of mine had husband I did not know this when I started writing the book, but I was going to write about the rage thing because I'd done some research on it. Her ex-husband has been pre-diagnosed, had it, and I'll just say it got very violent at the end. So it is a real thing, and sometimes we write about real things, and sometimes you find out later they're more poignant than you could ever have imagined.
Yeah. Well, let me put it to you like this. One skill that writers have, good writers have, is researching something, but not letting the reader feel you're screaming, "Look what I researched." And one thing
Right.
I really, really appreciated about the book was it never for a second seemed to me you were going, "Look what I researched,
Mm.
and let me dump all this information on you." Um, so let me ask you, how, when you're writing, during your process of writing this, how do you guard against what we know in the business call info dump?
Yeah.
How do you guard against that?
Well, first of all, thanks for the compliment. Yeah, that's it. I'm one of those writers who's not huge on research, but I always do, as any good writer will do, more than I need. Of course, you get more um, research, much more than you're going to need. You're looking for those little pieces of truth, verisimilitude that you can drop in to give just enough information and awareness, so it sounds like what you're conveying is you're not pointing at yourself, but you're saying you're conveying that there's some expertise there, maybe without the data dump, the info dump. So yeah, I do. I don't know how I'm not saying I'm good at it either, but I do try to give as little as possible, and I try to put in what's going to affect the character who's involved, the most important parts of how it affects him or her. So that's where I kind of try to distill it down. And I'm sure I've been guilty of in some books, what have you, of putting in too much. But yeah, I try to distill it down as much as possible and just how it's going to affect the story. Because I've read books where there is some data dumpage, but it can be really interesting because I'm learning something new. But
Well,
I don't. I
it could
try
be
not to do
really
that.
interesting if it's like a Tom Clancy book,
Yeah.
because
Right.
part of the appeal of those books is, see, look what I found out. It's
Yeah.
actually part of the attraction. But in PI,
Yeah.
what I have done and what you do is, you better not do that. And I
Right.
really appreciate it when I see a writer who doesn't, whack you over the head with, see how much research I've done.
Well,
So,
thank you. It's a
oh,
compliment coming
you're
from you for
welcome.
sure.
By the way, I'll give you my address so you can send the check when this is done.
Yeah. I already have it.
um,
Smaller check than you thought is coming.
yeah. So there's a ton of genres and subgenres to write in. And I know it from your introduction that the simple art of murder was the thing that turned you on initially.
Yeah.
But let's face it, whereas PI was once the big tree in the middle of a small orchard, it is now the withering tree in the corner of a huge
Yeah,
orchard.
very true.
So, fans, do you like that metaphor? So here's the deal. Why PI for you? I mean, I have my
Yeah.
answer, but why for you?
Yeah, it is a bit in the introduction because I've been reading PI work. I've been reading mystery since I was a kid. I don't really go outside the genre very much, but PIs from this from Chandler on, and I like I always think of my idea of PI, my idea of Rick Cahill is kind of like a gunfighter in the West, where Rick may not come into the town, be the outsider from that comes into the town to present justice, his form or what he's been hired to do. But he is he is put into positions where he is the outsider almost always, and he's kind of an outsider anyway because he's mostly a loner. So I like that idea of the lone wolf, although he does have a sidekick, although he's more kind of the sidekick to Moira McFarlane because she's smarter than he is. But I always like that appeal. I'm a huge Western fan too. I couldn't write Westerns, but I love watching them. That's another thing. That's another tree that's withering in the corner somewhere, are Westerns. But I like the idea of, first of all, I like the idea of first person being inside the writer's head, and that's, most PI novels, hard boiled. But I like the idea of the lone wolf, the outsider, grappling with society's norms and bumping up against law and order when he needs to. But I hope to write Rick forever, but I am going to be taking a break after I finish this book. Now I'm going to write something different. Clearly, it's going to be crime, but it's going to be in third person, multiple points of view. So God knows how that's going to go. I've been writing one guy for 20 years inside his head. Um, but yeah, the appeal is the idea of I guess the one person standing up against his idea of injustice, maybe not always society's.
Well, what's funny is people would never mistake Jack Reacher for a PI, but what you've just described, right? Think about it. The one against the many,
Yeah,
the stranger in town, who solves the problem, maybe not the way that conventional way to do it.
yeah,
Um, that's Jack Reacher. Um,
good
and
point.
and what cracks me up is that Reacher fans would be horrified at the notion that Lee's character is, a PI in disguise.
It's
But
a good
I've
point.
always thought of him that way. Um, and making the connection with the westerns is, if you watch High Plains Drifter, that's
Absolutely.
Jack Reacher.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely. I
yeah,
never thought of that.
yeah.
I need to get bigger advances. Damn it.
Join the club. I don't think, what's funny is we both know people who make millions of dollars doing what we do. Uh, but I love when fans or readers say, so you're rich?
Yeah, I know. I know.
Yeah. Uh, yeah. No.
Yeah, yeah.
No. Um, so tell us a little bit about who you were before you were Matt Coyle, the Seamus winning or mystery writer.
That's a good ring to it. The Seamus winning mystery writer. And like you, that I'll just go off on a side here. Like you, that award means a lot to me because I read the genre forever. I've read you. I've read all the greats, and to be, you know, etched, have my name on that list is so cool. Cool to hear, especially coming from you too. I've done a lot of things, not many of them very well. I was in I was in the restaurant business for 10 years. I was in the golf business for 10 years. And I was in the sports collectible business for 16 years. Sports, it's not collectibles. I gotta say that. Sports licensing, it's different. Um, for 16 years. I wrote 6 books while I was working in sports licensing, and I quit my day job It'll be, what's today, the 5th, as we're filming this.
Yes.
It'll be on the 15th. It'll be 4 years since I quit my day job, which happens to be my birthday too.
Oh,
Um,
happy birthday in
so
advance.
yeah, thanks. Thanks. Well, nobody else is going to notice. So, yeah. So I did. I never had a career. I always told me I had a degree in English, of course, which is good for washing dishes out when you get out of college, and then moving up the lines in a restaurant business, which I did, to become a manager. Um, but I told people that I was going to be a writer. So that way I never really had to advance in a career. I never had to have a career. I had jobs because I was going to be a writer. I wasn't writing, but I was talking about it like a dumbass. Um, and then when I was working for a golf company that I saw, I worked for others that got out of business. So I saw the handwriting on the wall and I said, well, this is it. I think I was 42 or 3. And I said, when this thing goes out of business, you have to take the time to write, or you can't pretend it's something you're going to do. And you got to maybe find a career. And I did. And 10 years later, I got published.
Funny thing is, I worked in the restaurant business for 10 years
Oh, cool.
as well. Yeah, did restaurant openings. I did everything except
Uh-huh.
wash dishes.
Mm,
And it's funny, as I went to college and I have major credits in 3 things which qualify you for washing dishes.
that's right. Absolutely.
Psychology, philosophy, and English literature.
Yeah.
All very practical, career-oriented subjects.
Well, you're much more ambitious than me. I only got 1 degree.
Oh, I doubt it. Um, and I think that's actually a common theme with writers, is that they've actually done a lot of things, but have always thought of themselves as writers.
Yeah.
Um, so let's quickly go back to the novel, since that's one of the reasons we're here. So Rick's got Cale's got CTE,
Yeah.
and briefly, he gets a call from a woman who he does background checks for, who works for
Yeah.
a big company, and they have a meeting, and then
Yeah. Rick, he thinks she wants him to look into this other private investigative agency that does what he does over some loss report. He thinks this is some inter office politic bowl that I shouldn't be involved in. He just had a row with his wife. He's not in the best place, but this woman directs a lot of business his way. So, I'll take the meeting. He takes the meeting, does a little research investigation. Seems like a pretty much nothing burger. But in the meantime, she's raped and murdered. And even though he's got no responsibility for it, he wasn't really, she hadn't hired him specifically to look out for her care or anything like that. He feels responsible because it happened on his watch. Somehow it happened on his watch. And if that happens with Rick, he has to get involved. He has to find the truth. And in doing so, he bumps up against this defense contractor, which is one of the companies he worked with in real life. And in this situation, there are defense contractors who have civilian products and defense products, and Rick researches potential employees for the civilian side. Anyway, along with that, there's a very mysterious shell corporation up in Monterey that with a wannabe playboy as their CEO, kind of an interesting character to me.
okay, so I'm
And
going to stop you there, because
yeah,
I
yeah,
think I would have read this book with that intro, even if I didn't get a free copy. And so again, I would highly recommend this book, folks. Buy this book and read it. It's really good, and
thank you.
it's really good without being, too much to the beats of PI novels. What's
No, thanks.
really good PI novel for me, because I've read so many and written, about 25 of them myself, that the fact is that you can do it by rote,
Mm,
and readers know exactly what's coming, or you can
uh,
do it like you did it in this book, where you supply the satisfaction to the reader of getting what they expect, but also a lot of what they don't expect.
well,
So,
thank you.
oh yeah, and I wouldn't be surprised if you win another Seamus Award myself. I
Thank you.
know I'm not a judge. No, I'm not. So Matt, thanks a lot, man. I
Thank
really
you. Appreciate it. It's always,
uh,
it's a pleasure. I have a lot of respect and admiration for you and what you've done for the genre, to be quite honest.
thanks a lot, Matt.
You bet.